The Miami Hurricanes just pulled out one of the biggest wins of the college football weekend. Meanwhile, the North Carolina Tar Heels got steamrolled at home, and yet North Carolina is trending to flip a blue chip recruit from Miami.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about Miami's outlook after getting a huge win, a signature win against Notre Dame. There's a lot of work to do, and the schedule may be tougher, even tougher than we thought before the season started. We'll talk about the Miami Hurricanes trending to land a top 2027 wide receiver. Guess they appreciate the work Shannon Dawson and Kevin Beard are doing. But let's start with one of the more bizarre recruiting stories of the week, and this is why we bring in the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith. So, Brian, we've talked a lot on Locked On Canes in recent months about Kenton Dopson III, stud defensive back, class of 2027, but he's looking to reclassify to 2026. For several months, he's been committed to the University of Miami. Now, when he decided to reclassify, we figured that might change his recruitment. You know, other teams are going to have the opportunity for a flip. But of all the teams in America who might be interested in flipping Kenton Dopson, it looks like at the time we're having this conversation, it's just about a done deal that Dopson is going to flip to Grandpa Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels. They must have kept him away from a television and any internet connection on Monday night. I mean, Brian, this is one of the more bizarre things. I mean, I don't know if this is we'll talk about whether it's a leverage play or what, but flipping to North Carolina, really?
When you first messaged me about that, I didn't know if you were joking with me or if it was something that you accidentally put in the wrong name or, spell check on your phone, but you're not kidding. And I'm like, I didn't even watch the game, but I watched some of the highlights, and I'm glad I didn't waste my 3 hours. I wouldn't have gotten
I watched the game, and the game should have been on Comedy Central because it was a comedy of errors for North Carolina.
Look, there are a lot of things that you can do to get a kid that you may not normally get to come look your way. But there was nothing North Carolina did that would make you think, boy, I want to go play for the Heels. They got just butchered by a quality team, but not one that's going to win the Big 12 or anything. And at least we don't think. They got a good quarterback. I think he'll play in the NFL.
Yeah.
When was the last time you said TCU has a dominant defense? Just dominant. I mean, they've had some good ones.
Yeah, I mean, not even the year that they played in the national championship game. You didn't say that about their D.
That's what I mean. And yet they held the Tar Heels to 40. The whole program's just got problems. So anyway, I don't get it. But if Dopson wants to go out of state and do that, I'm sure NIL is a major factor. Maybe there's somebody on their staff that has a connection. I'm really grasping here. But, I mean, Miami is the better program by light years. And they just did a really good job against Notre Dame with their defense. So, again, you're making a logical statement, but we're talking about teenagers. So I don't know who's driving the decision there, but if he ends up in North Carolina, it would still surprise me. I need to see it. But right now, one of the better players in the class of 27 who will likely end up in 26 appears to be trending to Chapel Hill. Go figure.
And I think the flip to North Carolina, I think that's going to happen. But the big question I have is, does he flip back to Miami or does he flip to someplace else? Because, from what I can gather following the sentiment of, national experts like Steve Wiltfong, he's the one who first alerted me this was, probably going to happen this week because he put out the expert prediction, formerly known as the crystal ball, for him that this flip was going to happen. Tom Lloyd from 24/7 has also commented on it, and they've both said that North Carolina is, allegedly offering him more money. So,
Sure.
You have to wonder, is this a leverage play? And also, I've noticed, Brian, over the last couple of years, weird stuff happens when players reclassify, and sometimes they end up National Signing Day becoming Miami Hurricanes anyway. I mean, a couple years ago, Armando Blunt, you
That's the
remember
one I
he
saw.
was
Yep.
committed to Miami, reclassified, flipped to Florida State, then flipped back to Miami. Malachi Toney, when he reclassified last year, he initially decommitted from Miami and then ended up recommitting before National Signing Day. And man, thank goodness for that one, because without Malachi Toney, Miami may not have beaten Notre Dame the other night. So you have to wonder, because the thing about Dobson is, and like, listen, I have nothing bad to say about the young man. I know, he lost his mother, and he actually honored his mother on her birthday when he made his commitment to Miami. So go through your process, young man. I hope that process leads him back to Miami, but it sounds like this might be a leverage play, because when you reclassify, it kind of shakes up your whole recruitment board.
Yeah, because then teams have a different outlook. How many corners they need in a class or whatever position. Obviously, Dobson's a corner and a big one, like 6'1", 185, 10, 900 meters. He's got all the measurables you're looking for. But maybe that's why North Carolina really decided, because they knew they offered him, I think it was around the 5th of August. So it's not been all that long ago. But they probably saw in fall camp, like, this probably ain't going to go well. I'm going to go out on a limb after they saw the first week of practice. We need to go out and find more corners. I'm being serious. Like, we did go watch the highlights of the team. They got butchered. So I would imagine that's part of it. And this is the part where it's interesting. We know Miami's got NIL money. There's been debate about how much UNC has and whether it's really going to football. I don't know if we have any way to get that, but that is a serious hoops program. And I'm sure there's some infighting for their money. So maybe they're like, well, we may need to spend at least some of it on this defense, because otherwise Bill's not going to do us any good.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's the not so good news, that, Dobson flip is likely going to happen. Good news, another Steve Wiltfong prediction earlier this week went in Miami's favor for elite Miami Northwestern wide receiver Nick Lanier, who, you and I talked about Lanier just last week, because he was on that visitors list. And, apparently he liked what he saw, not only from Miami's win, but from Miami's offense, who played pretty well against one of the best defenses in the country last week. And so Lanier has gotten a Wiltfong prediction to land at Miami. I mean, talk again, Brian, just about how, because you told us last week how he really fits that, like, old school Miami receiver mold, like how a guy like Lanier would fit here.
I think that his moxie in the game, like, there's so many. I don't like picking anyone. Andre Johnson, they honored him the other night. Notre Dame, let's just use him as an example.
Sure.
In the moment, even if Andre didn't run a great route or the defender made a play, Andre always seemed to come up with the clutch catch. And I'm not saying this guy's Andre. Let's be honest. I'm not saying he's Andre Johnson, but this kid has that. And he's got the speed and the elusiveness that is just rare. So if he wanted to come to Miami early, you would openly accept that. This is a top 5 receiver in the next class. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's really all that debatable. And he's also a kid from your backyard. He's from the city of Miami. So the speed and the athleticism mixed in with that moxie to, like, be in the moment. Yeah, you're going to take that. Miami needs more of that. Malachi brought some of that the other night. What do you have? 8 catches, Alex? Something like that. That's incredible.
I know he had 8. I think it was 6 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, you can't write that script any better. I'm not saying Lenore's going to come in and do that, but wouldn't shock me. Right now, I would say he's as good or better than what Toney was at the same stage. I think he's got the possibility of being that, and he's going to be a multi-year starter at Miami or wherever he ends up. So Miami all of a sudden is trending for receivers. Like, getting Malachi obviously was huge. And they got some other guys the last couple of years. Need to see, obviously, JoJo and et cetera. But they're headed in the right direction now. And we always were like, why haven't they had more of this, especially with Mario there? Well, it's starting to show. And if they get Lanier early, don't be surprised if that helps them with quarterback and other positions too, because everybody wants to play with great players like that.
Well, and there may be some movement with Nick Lanier's teammate, Calvin Russell, who was at the game. We'll talk about that when we come back. And I want to pick Brian's brain, because He was at the game. We met up. We took a little photo together. He was on the sidelines. I want to see if Brian's outlook has changed on Miami this season. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. It's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For your Miami Hurricanes, Ruben Hurricane Bain delivered in a big way. From the interception to the big fourth quarter sacks. Guys, when the pressure was on, Bain came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching him throughout his career, you know that performance wasn't a fluke. Ruben Bain is on a streak. And just like Bain delivered for the Canes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period is through November 18th. My friends, we are also proudly brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a strong experience that feels alive in every detail. Yeah, Mazda offers more than just safety. It's won more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. If you're an athlete who focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even an everyday drive feel special. It's the small details that make big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out the portal. Brian Smith does an awesome job covering all things recruiting, NIL, and of course, transfer portal. On the portal podcast, it's available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. All right, so Brian, I think an interesting recruitment to cover for the next few months is going to be that of Miami Northwestern five-star receiver Calvin Russell. Surprised some people when he picked Syracuse a few months ago, and it wasn't just him picking against Miami, because Michigan was also in the mix, and there was some thought he could end up there, like there were other schools that were in the mix for Russell. But some things we know about Russell: not only was he at Miami's win over Notre Dame this past weekend, he says he's going to check out at least one more Hurricanes game this season. We know he's very good friends with Malachi Toney, who had a breakout performance in his first collegiate game. He was in Miami's locker room, Russell, wearing a Malachi Toney t-shirt, hanging out, throwing up the U with Malachi after the game. From what I mentioned something that my pal Peter Ariz reported this week and by the way, this part of this was spot on with what you've been saying for months, Brian. Maybe Calvin Russell, who basketball is also very important to him, maybe wasn't convinced how legitimate Miami's basketball interest is, but also, he felt like Syracuse was recruiting him a lot harder than Miami, maybe showing him more love, but that might be changing now on the Miami side. So, are you going to be watching Calvin Russell for the next few months, kind of on flip watch? Because I'll also say, for what it's worth, Syracuse doesn't look that great.
Syracuse lost a lot, and it showed. They weren't really, especially their defense, they were not competitive with Tennessee. But I think if you go to another team's locker room and you're committed to a different program that's in the same conference, you're on foot watch. That's kind of how I look at that. Like, I get that he's buddies with Malachi and several other guys. And for those that don't know, Calvin's a very gregarious personality, great kid. He likes being around people. But you were still in Miami's locker room.
Yeah.
Facts are facts. So he's at least considering it. I would love to know what the conversations are about the hoops and how much he's very much interested in, like, not just being a part of like the Syracuse basketball program, how much he wants to play, or if it was at Miami, LSU, whatever. I don't know how much that's driving the bus, but at some point the rubber's got to meet the road and he's got to make a definitive decision. Syracuse, it sounds like, it's committed to him playing, but I can't justify that. I doubt Miami really wants him playing basketball. Let's be honest. Cristobal is very old school. But for elite players, you got to make exceptions, which probably makes Mario very angry, like most head coaches. They don't like change at all. But either you do it or you don't get kids. That's kind of the rule now. But at the same time, do you really want to go all the way up to the north and play for a program that's probably never going to contend for a title? That's what you got to ask yourself. Miami's trending in a much better direction, in my opinion. We'll see. But him going to this game is one thing. But if you're correct and he goes to I don't know which one it'll be, but whichever game Miami that he goes to later in the year, at that point, I got to start thinking that he's serious about attending Miami. I mean, not that he wasn't looking, but like it's a pretty good chance it's going to happen.
So here's a player that I don't think we've ever talked about on this show, Brian. He's an Oregon commit who was a surprise visitor. Maybe we have talked about him months ago before he committed to Oregon, but a surprise visitor. I don't know if anyone was expecting him to turn up. 5-star edge Anthony Tank Jones shows up at Miami versus Notre Dame. And again, I think if you're a defensive lineman, you probably liked what you saw from Miami. I think he is going to be in Eugene this weekend, so it's not as if he's not going out there to Oregon. But I don't know, Brian, talk about this player. I'd love the scouting report, and if you think Miami may have a shot to pull off a flip.
When I first moved to Alabama, the first recruit that I met was Jones, and he was a sophomore at the time, and I'm like, I would take him right now. He was on a visit to Auburn. He's 6'4", 235, no body fat, and he just looked like, okay, this is a future NFL player. Great kid. He's been an elite recruit since like a freshman in high school, plays at St. Paul's Episcopal down in Mobile. Every school in the country has offered him, and offered early. And he's a natural edge rusher, but he has a lot of power. Like he's not one or the other, he's both. He's got a little Ruben in him, not quite as big as Ruben, but it's the same kind of style. I don't care if you play a 3-4, a 4-3. Like he could play outside linebacker in a 3-4, but he can put his hand in the dirt and be a strong side end too. Like he's the rare player, kind of like Ruben, that you can move him around and do a lot of different things. So if they got him on campus, again, he's committed to Oregon, as you noted. Hey, anything's possible. I don't know why you wouldn't be excited if you're Miami, because that's an early play guy at any school he goes to. National recruit, top 50 kid. Conservatively, most people think top 25. So that is the kind of guy that can change your program.
Now, I still think probably the most important, and listen, if Miami had a realistic shot at Tank, I'd obviously put him in this discussion, but I think the most important flip target is probably James J.J. Johnson from Miami Northwestern, who also visited the game. You know, he's committed to Texas. He already has flipped once. He flipped from Georgia to Texas. You know, you've scouted JJ even before he got to Northwestern. You've been very aware of his exploits. How good is this player, Brian? Like, does he live up to that 5-star billing?
He's a kid that's a one gap and go 3-tech that kind of fits Miami's history. Very good athlete, has the size. He's 6'1.5", 6'2", 280 something, and very explosive. This is not a great year nationally for defensive tackles, in case anybody was wondering. And this was one of the first guys I was told that everybody wanted. Texas doesn't recruit down in South Florida very much, but they really wanted him. What's that tell you? Top 5 by pretty much every college staff that goes after these kind of kids. And he's a guy, again, we knew about him early. I'm not surprised that there's a bidding war for him because D-tackle is so valuable. Look at the game. Like the Notre Dame Miami game, Miami had better D tackles. I think that's the biggest reason that they won. They completely dominated in certain sections of the game, especially early. That's why they won the game. Getting guys like him changes it. So if Mario and company are going to try to flip anybody else in this class, and you could argue several, I think Johnson is the most important. I agree because he's explosive, and you can't. And he's at Northwestern now. That also holds some water, but if they can get him to add to this class, they could end up possibly in the top 5 of the recruiting rank. It's possible. There's still some possible flip. Him and Calvin, etc. There's still plenty of meat on the bone for Miami in the 26 class.
All right, coming up next, our everydayers haven't forgotten that Brian Smith did pick Notre Dame to beat Miami. Thankfully, he was wrong, but I want to see how Brian's outlook has changed on the season, and also how the outlook has changed for Miami versus Florida State in about a month. Yeah, you want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Hey, Locked On Canes fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Not me. Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. People are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card or for Amazon and other brands. Do not let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offer varies by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We have the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, with us. All right, so Brian, you predicted a close game, but a Notre Dame win. It goes the other way, Miami 27-24. How did your opinion or season outlook change on Miami based on that performance?
It went up, especially as I noted at the end of last segment, at D tackle. That may not be their deepest spot, but I don't think there's a team in the country that's happy with their defensive tackle situation overall, like literally.
Yeah.
Miami's got better ones than most teams. There's just aren't enough of them is the problem. I like Blay a lot, and Scott had his moments like creating the fumble. So I think it goes up. The biggest, and I'll just ask you, who's the best guy off the bench for them at D tackle, and do you trust him if he has to play in clutch situations against Florida State or Clemson or something? That's the only real question that I have about players. The secondary played better, but Notre Dame didn't attack it very well. I still think that, like O.J. Frederick, we talked about last year, we think he's going to be really good. He played even better than I thought he would. And on offense, how could you not talk about Malachi Toney? Nobody predicts freshmen to have those kinds of impacts in their first game.
Yeah,
he tore Notre
first
Dame
game in a top 10 matchup too.
Yeah, like Notre Dame didn't do a good job with it, but they didn't adjust, and he just kept eating them up. Yeah. So you could argue, except for maybe he had 12 straight completions, I would say a certain quarterback from Miami deserves a lot of credit too. But Malachi, you could have said is the MVP for I wouldn't have had any problem with it. He's really good. So they're more balanced and they're more dominant at D tackle than what I thought. So they're a top 10 team. Now, the one question I have is one that I know Miami fans complain about. Mario took his foot off the gas. Mm-hmm. That was disturbing. They should have smoked Notre Dame, and he didn't let his quarterback keep throwing. That was the one thing I thought they should have won by 2 or 3 touchdowns. And they almost ended up losing at the end because of it. They can't do it. You get somebody down, you got to stomp them. They had a chance. That's the only thing that I would complain about if I was a Miami fan. That you got, again, your quarterback was red hot. Put your foot on the gas in the game. Everything else, though, if you're a Miami fan, you should be very happy.
A couple things. First, I'll answer your question about the D tackles. So against Notre Dame, they only used 3 traditional D tackles. There were some situations like speed package where they kicked Armando Blunt inside. Sure. We know obviously Bain and Mesor have that versatility as well. The only 3 true defensive tackles they used were Justin Scott, David Blay, and Ahmad Moten. So we're kind of yet to see who the next guy up is. It could be Dante Simpson, a true freshman. Right. I expect we'll probably see a lot of him against Bethune-Cookman. Dalen Russell, second year, had actually a good camp and a good off season. Artavius Jones, we're wondering what we're going to see from him this year. But yeah, there's not really we have 3 guys clearly. There's not really a clear 4th guy yet. In terms of the conservative thing, based on I've been playing devil's advocate on this because listen, I tend to agree with what you said, but I can kind of understand the method to the madness. And Shannon Dawson also talked a little bit about it. Yeah, they got ultra conservative, Brian. But I think part of it was they remember, what they did wrong on offense. And obviously the defense cost Miami a lot of games, but on offense last year against Syracuse, when they're blowing that 21-0 lead, they stayed too pass heavy, didn't eat up enough of the clock, which doesn't force Syracuse to use their timeout. So I think that was a big thought. And Dawson said this at the end. If you stop running the ball, if you throw the football, obviously bad things can happen, negative plays, incompletion, stop the clock, interception would have been catastrophic. So you keep running the football, at least if you can pick up, one extra first down than what they got, you can essentially kill the game. But you also force Notre Dame to use their timeouts, because it did, Brian, it worked out in this sense. Notre Dame gets the football back, 1:04 for their final drive. They didn't have any timeouts left, which was a huge difference. So, if you play the result, it worked because they trusted their defense and their defense came through. But I understand, it almost didn't work. But if we play the result, it did work in the end.
I would have been more at the very end. I kind of get that middle third quarter, the end of the fourth quarter. I thought they could have.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the part. And I understand a lot of coaches just run it into the line, but it is what it is. But again, if that's what you're picking on, if you're a Miami fan, you're in a pretty good spot. So I want to throw this out. Like, I didn't anticipate this because I covered the Seminoles, Locked On Seminoles. Florida State's way better than anybody rational thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible that those two teams could be undefeated on October 4th. Wouldn't it be cool if game day, or I don't know what other games are that weekend, it would be awesome if that game meant something again beyond just the rivalry. Because it's usually one's up and one's down over the line. It's not been very good. If Miami beats UF in a few weeks, that game should be two undefeated teams, technically.
Yeah.
So that is the other thing that's cool about both of them winning this weekend.
Yeah, two undefeated teams. And if they stay undefeated, it's going to be a top 15, if not a top 10 matchup. Right. So because Miami, obviously, they're already in the top 5. So if they keep winning, they'll probably be 2 to 4 by that point in the season. And what is Florida State now? Around 15th, 14th?
Something like, depending on the poll, but yeah.
So they might be in the top 10. They might be in the top 10 by then. Yeah. So, and one of my listeners asked me that question yesterday, if I think either the Florida game at home or the Florida State game would get game day. I'm just going to say the Florida State game, because Florida has got LSU on the road the week before they play Miami. So it's, they proved me wrong. Great. But hell of a game, but it's hard to believe they're going to go into Baton Rouge and win. Maybe it'll happen, but I'm not counting on that. I think there's a much better chance that Florida State would be undefeated at that point than Florida would be.
I agree, but either way, having Knowles and Canes mean something. College football needs that. It's one of the reasons I got into covering recruiting and all that stuff, that rivalry. It's great. Yeah. So it would be good for everybody involved.
Yeah. Well, and how crazy has your week been hosting Locked On Seminoles? I imagine the fan bases. I saw them rush in the field after the game. Sure. They got fined for it, but how do you stop that? You beat Alabama after 2-2. There's no way to stop fans from rushing the field in that spot. So they were rushing the field, and then they're rushing into Locked On Seminoles on Brian's show.
It was a lot of fun. People, I think, had relief. That was a really hard year. I know people listening to the show hate Florida State and all that, but you can relate to the point that if you have a really bad year, you don't even go to a bowl, that shouldn't happen to Miami or Florida State. And both of them have experienced that here recently. And it's what is going on? So when you get back on track, your fans are going to let it loose. And I even saw a post on X, the best $50,000 we've spent because of that fine or something like that. The fans needed it. I think that Norvell and his staff and his players needed it too. So good for them. And now the question is, I posted about this today on Locked On Seminoles. Will you stay focused? So you get ready for Miami. So you get ready for Clemson. They got to play at Clemson this year. Good luck. And they got UF at the end of the year on the road too. So these are the kinds of moments where older Florida State people that know it, Bowden's teams would trounce these kind of teams. Lately, they've kind of taken it easy, and Miami's done that too. Teams they should kill, then they go play well against Florida State or whatever. Need to see the consistency. So we have an undefeated game.
Yeah, well, we appreciate Brian's time as always. Make sure you check him out on X at FBScout_Florida, at LO_the portal. Check him out on the Portal Pod. And I don't know how many Miami fans are going to check you out on Locked On Seminoles, but if you ever, you want to see what's going on up there in Tallahassee, you can check that out as well. And make sure you make Locked On Canes your first listen. And then for your next listen, guys, this network is doing amazing things. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff. It's your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. a college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch college football kickoff every Thursday throughout the season. Of course, you can catch the replay, and it's only on Fire TV. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.